8.2.2. We're going to continue practicing filling out the X factor. So as you see here, the instructions I have here are to fill out the X factor. All of these have no leading coefficient. So no leading coefficient means there's no number in front. Eventually we'll start working with a number in front, and that's going to change kind of our rules a little bit. It's not going to change the rules. It's going to change kind of how we set these up. But for all of these, there's no leading coefficient, so there's no extra kind of work or anything we need to pay attention to. We're just going to fill out our X factor and then figure out our side numbers. You'll see here I have a chart that I've created down below, and I'm going to be referencing this so that you can see how to use it. And from here forward, you are going to be allowed to use this. So in 8.2.1, you had to kind of think of these on your own. From here forward, I'm going to allow you to use this chart. And this chart's very helpful. It will be posted in Google Classroom for you to reference. It has the number that we're looking for. It has the numbers or the factors that multiply up to create that number. So here's a 6. I have 1 times 6 makes 6 and 2 times 3. And then off to the sides, it tells you what they add to create and what they subtract to create. So 1 plus 6 is 7 and 6 minus 1 is 5. And anytime you're working with negatives, like if you only have a negative on top or a negative on the bottom, you're probably going to be subtracting. If you have the same signs, so if you have a positive number on the top of your big X and a positive number on the bottom, you're going to be adding. If you have a positive number on top and a negative number on the bottom, you may be adding as well, just adding two negatives. So we'll kind of work through that. So this is nice. This goes all the way through 100. Nice big tables here, or all the way through 90. And it just kind of allows you to see, hey, what are the things that multiply to create 90, right? And or any of these other numbers. And then what do they add to make, or what do they subtract to make? So if there's a number here that's missing, like you see I have 72 listed and 74, but 73 is not listed, that's because it is a prime number. It does not have any factors. So 1 and that number itself are the only things that work. So I'm going to jump up here and we'll start, and then I'm going to be moving back and forth so you can see how to use that chart. So here we've been given this 3-term. In Delta Math, you were just given the X, but I'm going to work on filling these out so you can see it. So we're going to have a big X, and our last number, negative 18, goes on top. And our bottom number we get from the 3, or we get from the middle term, so that's a 3. So I'm looking for what will multiply to make negative 18 and combine to make 3. So I'm going to jump down here to my chart now so you can see me use this. I'm going to find 18. Here it is. And I'm looking for 3. So here's 18. That's my top number. And then I'm looking for on the sides, where's my 3? So here's my 3. And the two numbers that multiply to make that are 3 and 6. So my side numbers here are 3 and 6. And then I do have to do a little bit of thinking about my signs. To get a negative 18, one of these will have to be negative. To get a positive 3, my smaller number has to be negative, right? Because 6 minus 3 is 3. And your bigger of these two numbers will always have the same sign as your bottom number. So if your bottom number is positive, your bigger number is positive. Let's take a look at number 2. So I'm going to have 2 on top. That came from here. I'm going to have a negative 3 on the bottom. So 2 is my number on my chart that I'm looking for. Oh, I didn't list 2 because there's just 2 small numbers. Oh, 2 is prime. 2 1 times 2, that's our only combination, so 1 and 2. And in order to get a positive on the top, these have to be the same sign, but in order to get a negative on the bottom, they're both going to have to be negative. So figuring out the positives and negatives are going to be the most challenging part of this. With the charts, I've taken the number, kind of like thinking of the numbers out of it. So at least there's that, but there is still some figuring out you have to do here. Here's an 8 up top, a 6 on the bottom, 8 and 6. So when I'm thinking of my factors of 8, I'm looking for, okay, so here's 8, and here's 6. So it is 2 and 4. 2 and 4 are going to add together to make 6. And so just going to check my signs. 2 times 4 makes 8. That's good. 2 plus 4 makes 6. So that's what I needed there, 2 and 4. Here's 14 and 9. So hopefully some of these, you may not need to use the chart. You may be able to go, oh yeah, 2 times 7. And that works. So my hope is that you get fluent enough with these that you're really fast at them. Negative 15 and negative 2. This would be a negative 5 and a positive 3. So my hope is that you get to that point where you can look at it and you can think, okay, a negative 6 and a negative 5. Now this one's tricky. I'm going to show you why. So for negative 6 and negative 5. So over here for 6, so 6 is my number on top, right? Negative 6, negative 5 was what I was working with. If you notice, there are 2 5s here. So I have to figure out which one would work. In order to make this 5, 2 and 3 will have to have the same sign. It would either have to be a positive 2 and a positive 2, a positive 2 and a positive 3 to make 5, or a negative 2 and a negative 3 to make negative 5. So in order to get to negative 5, these would have to have the same sign. Negative 2, negative 3. The problem with that is if I multiply same signs up, I would get a positive number up here. So 2 and 3 do not work for this. So if you come to a point, those ones didn't work, 1 and 6, and then if this was a negative 6, that does work. 1 minus 6 is negative 5, and 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. So sometimes you'll come across where there's two options, and that's where you got to check the signs. So for this one, it was 1 and negative 6. And if you wanted to write it like this, that's fine too. Doesn't matter where they go in the X. Your top and bottom numbers matter. And sometimes we write this. Sometimes we're looking for what multiplies to make 20 and what adds or subtracts to make 9. For 20, I'm going to jump down here and show you 20. So if I'm looking for 20, I'm going to look down the sides. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Oh, here's 9. So this is what works, 4 and 5. And they have to have the same sign to add up. They have to have different signs to subtract. So same signs to add to these numbers, different signs to subtract to these numbers. So for this one, 9, 4 and 5. Okay, for this one, we have negative 6 and 1. So let's think about it. 2 and 3. And we would have to have a negative 2. Because my bottom number and my big number have to have the same sign. 30 and negative 11. Ooh, I like this one. 30 and negative 11. So I'm going to jump down to my chart for 30 just to show you again how the chart works. I'm looking for 11. Here's my 11 right here. So 5 and 6 are my combo. Those are my numbers. And in order to get to 11, they have to have the same signs. So if I'm looking for negative 11 here, I'm going to want a negative 5 and a negative 6. Negative 15 and 2. And if you liked doing this way and listing it out yourself, 1 and 15, 2 doesn't work, 3 and 5, 4 doesn't work, and 5 we already listed. So here's all of our options. 3 and 5 can make 2. To get a negative on top, one of these two things has to be negative. To get a positive on the bottom, our bigger number has to be positive, so it must be a negative 3. So yeah, that's how the chart works. You're probably not going to be working with numbers much larger than the ones you saw in this example, but the chart goes all the way through 90. So if you needed to know 84 and 25, you have a couple options here, and then you would have to figure out which signs, what the signs would have to be to get you there. Okay, but they're all listed here. Very nice, and that will be on Google Classroom for you to reference.